Welcome back, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Cam'Ron Johnston. He is your host, Tyler Britton. The Wildcats struggle in Austin, but there's also some promising signs from the game on Saturday in front of 100,000 loud fans at Texas Stadium. I don't want to make this podcast. I really don't. I know it's going to be negative. I really don't want it to be. But Kentucky loses 31-14 in what was their furthest game west since the last time they played Texas back in 1951. Tyler, it's going to be a little bit of a therapy session for us here today, so let's go ahead and air out some of our grievances.
Yeah, for sure. Look, if you're listening to this podcast right now and you're looking for some positivity, go check out our other podcast for the basketball team. There's a lot of positivity there right now. We're doing some good stuff. You have Jacob Boyers, which just makes everything a little more special and glamorous there. But if you're here to dwell in how sorry we've been this season, stay here. We're going to have some things to talk about for this podcast. Look, we'll start off with this. I mean, 14-31. Against Texas here. We weren't necessarily expecting to come in and leave this game with a victory, but there were definitely opportunities here, Cam, where I thought we had opportunities to pull out the game. I mean, it felt like, especially in the second half, I think there was a time where there was back-to-back fumbles, and we didn't get the ball. And then when we did get a fumble, we would cough it right back up. It was penalties. It was turnovers. It was we would stop a drive and then we would create a penalty and then they would score the very next play. It was all over the place. It was a very disappointing game to watch in terms of it just seems like our team is checked out. It's tough. Cam, what did you see from our offense? Why don't you give us, why don't you just go ahead and lay out some of your grievances you have here? Because I know you have a few. I know you're holding back a lot more than I am right now.
I don't know if I necessarily agree that the team is checked out. I mean, I think they showed fight in this game. It's a lack of consistency. And if you're in the SEC, you've got to be a consistent football team to be good week in and week out. We can't even do it for a full game, stay consistent for a full game. And that's offense, defense, special teams. I mean, a guy that we've pumped up on this podcast numerous times, Alex Rayner, misses a chip shot field goal that would have put us at some point within a score. I mean, that changes the whole dynamic of the game right there. Uncharacteristic plays from guys like Max Hairston. We on this podcast we really like Max. Just a boneheaded play. He gets hit first in the end zone, but we've stopped him. It's a big stop, changes momentum of the game, gets him a little slap in the back of the head. I mean, if you're going to slap him, dude, at least make it worth it. I know the second guy always gets caught, and I think we all know that. I mean, watch NFL on Sundays, you see that time and time again. Just a very uncharacteristic play from him. He's a leader on this team, and he's proven to be a leader. Unfortunately, wasn't his finest moment there at Texas because he did make a couple good plays. I mean, this is a good wide receiver core for Texas, and Quinn Ewers is a good quarterback, even though he looked kind of a pedestrian at best in this game. He was hobbled with an injury. But uncharacteristic plays from guys that usually are your most consistent guys. It's just this game summed up the entire season, I think, in a nutshell, really.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I look at the Cutter Boley coming in for the second half. Even it really was just that the first play he gets sacked and he looked like his head went sideways. Kind of, it was crazy, insane. That was the sum of our season kind of play. And then the very next play, he hits a deep bomb downfield, and you're like, wow, okay, cool, like there's potential. And then you maybe have 2 or 3 plays in a row where they're really nice, and then you have a play that just doesn't make sense at all. It's been all over the place. I think I know we feel differently here. You think there might have been some more play there. I think that I do agree. I think there's some people who are still playing hard, but in terms of looking down the road, I don't think our players were looking forward to playing a bowl game this year. They just didn't show any heart. Come out this season and win a bowl game. I think that's the most disappointing part for this loss here. Again, we kind of already saw the writing on the wall. We probably weren't going to go into Texas and beat the number 3 team in the nation. But the nail in the coffin for us losing out in a bowl game opportunity really hurts there for us. But let's just talk a little bit about Cutter Boley here for the second half. We got a chance to see him for an entire second half against Texas. Played some real good competition here. Cam, what did you see from Cutter Boley here, and what does that really lay out for us in the future here?
Yeah, I mean, I think before we start talking about Cutter, I think we've got to talk about Brock just in general and what, his fate is for this football rest of the season and then potentially next season. I don't know what's going on with Brock. I mean, like I told you, I thought his best game he looked like was that Tennessee game right before he checked out and Gavin had to come in and replace of him. And then he comes that Murray State game, doesn't look good in that game. Comes out against Texas, doesn't look very good either. Granted, same excuses we've been giving him all year. We have drops as our receiving core, and the offensive line can't block me or you on the edge. So, I mean, he's had those same excuses built in. But, I mean, you've got to grow. You've got to adapt. And you were hoping that this year was going to be the year he was going to grow and adapt, and we were going to look forward to seeing Brock Vandegrift in 2025, and he was going to be that five-star quarterback that he was, that billing that he had coming out of high school. It's just not going to materialize. And I think you saw that with the instant spark, like you brought up when Cutter Boley came in. Granted, the offensive line tried to hold him back there. Like you said, very first play he gets sacked. Next play, deep shot to Barry and Brown. The writing's on the wall for Brock. I think if he does play against Louisville, which I don't know how you can start him after watching Cutter and how impressive he was against the number one defense in the nation in Texas, I think it'll be his last game in a Kentucky uniform. Because you can't bring him back knowing Cutter Boley is going to be your starter. It's just not – the dynamic's not going to work. Brock's going to want to transfer. And honestly, I think that's probably what's best for both sides at this time. Kentucky kind of gets some of the money off the books that they're going to have in NIL money tied up with Brock. They get that off the books if he leaves. And for Brock, a fresh start somewhere. Maybe he goes somewhere where they have a competent offensive line and he can kind of figure things out there. The matchup just unfortunately didn't work, and that's been kind of the story of the past couple of years for Kentucky and quarterbacks.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. I think I don't know if Brock coming here, I thought there was more expectations for him. I think we all kind of had more hope for Brock to really put our team together here. I just don't think it was a good fit throughout the season here. We saw it week after week, minus the Ole Miss game, which now looking at Ole Miss, the way they've been playing all year, I'm not sure that they're the team that we all thought they were going to be. But minus that game, he really hasn't really impressed us. He's been inconsistent. He's been hit or miss. His running ability's been good. I also put some of that on our offensive line. Not taking anything away from that either. They definitely don't hold up in the pass whatsoever. But I don't think this is the right fit for Brock. I wish him best of luck in the next opportunity. I hope that he can find peace with wherever he can go, and he can finish out his collegiate career and on a high note, and if that leads somewhere, great. But I think Cutter Boley is definitely going to be the next guy here for us. I think we should start him against Louisville. I think that I was talking to you, Cam, beforehand. I thought that Cutter Boley should start against Louisville. I didn't think he should have played the Texas game, but looking back at it, I'm kind of glad he did, because I thought he put some good film out there and got some live reps against good competition. I'm excited to see what he can do. He definitely has the arm strength. I think he brought a spark to the offense. Hopefully we can get some talent around him for next year, and we can put him around a team to be successful and, hopefully get to a bowl game or make a push for, championship game or something. I don't know, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in the offseason there. So, but why don't we talk a little bit about our offensive line and just talk about the state of that. Are we seeing any improvements here? What should we expect this offseason? What do we need to do to be better here? And what do we need to do?
There's so much that needs to be done to make this unit better. And the bad thing is that you're losing two starters in Marcus Cox and Eli Cox, which honestly might just be a blessing in disguise. Marcus Cox was okay last year. He's been awful this year. He's been hampered by nagging injuries. But, we can't make that excuse for you all year. And the bad thing is there's not a better option, beneath him. We've tried Malachi Wood out at right tackle. For a redshirt freshman, I think he's held up okay. We're playing against some of the best defensive lines in the country week in, week out. And use that with a true freshman. I think Malachi Wood has held up pretty well. I'm looking forward to seeing, how he can develop in the offseason, especially hopefully we have some camaraderie. Hopefully I know a lot of people want Eric Wolford fired, his offensive line coach. I know they want him fired. But at some point, you got to get camaraderie. You got to listen to techniques being taught by the same guy week in, week out, rather than, hey, new guy, new system, new scheme. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Malachi Wood can do. But can you tell me what has happened to Eli Cox? This guy was an all SEC center for us, mainstay at that center position. We talked about it during the preseason. That's the guy that we had like penciled in as like, oh, well, at least we don't have to worry about that spot. He has been awful. Like just downright awful. 4th and 1, when we're trying to go score, everybody knows you're running the ball. He gets blown off the line of scrimmage as soon as he snaps the ball 3 yards into the backfield, and we've got no chance at picking up the first down. And then he has a holding call later in the game that wipes off a big play. It's just been he's been consistently bad, and that is not something that I would have projected coming into the season from who is probably your biggest leader no matter what side of the ball you look at, and somebody that Mark Stoops trusts. So I genuinely don't know how this offensive line gets better. You got to hope a bunch of guys develop in the offseason, but it's going to be hard to develop if you're firing everybody every year.
Yeah, to that point, I mean, the offensive line in general, kind of put in perspective to our audience out here, if you haven't checked the stats yet, Brock Vandagriff and Cutter Boley combined had a negative 64 yards rushing. And that's in college football, that's sacks. So that's terrible. That put our rushing total to 21 yards total. In retrospect, Jamarian Wilcox and Demi Sumo Garnbay put up 80 yards by themselves. Low numbers for them statistically, but to go from that to 21 total yards on the game is crazy. Hopefully we can get that shirt up. And to your point, hopefully we can keep some pieces and we can develop in the offseason here. But I don't know, you've heard some rumors out there that there might be some changes in the coordinator positions. What have you heard on that?
I mean, it looks like Brad White, defense coordinator, is probably taking interviews elsewhere. He won't get fired here. I think he's one of the most tenured coaches at the university. But, I mean, if you're Brad White, think about all that he could be losing on the defensive side of the ball. Max Hairston could leave. Deion Walker said all preseason, and we talked about it a little bit off air, that he was leaving after this year. But, I mean, he took himself from a top 10 pick, consensus top 10 pick, in like the second defensive tackle in this draft, to being hopefully a second-round pick. And from a guy you were expecting to be your guy, like that was, when the college football game came out, everybody was like, oh man, I wonder how high Deion Walker is going to be on that list in the top 100 players. Is he going to be top 10? Is he going to be top 5? He's played nowhere near that level. He still makes those splash plays here and there. He looked a lot better against Texas. You could see when Josiah Hayes came back, it made an impact for him and helped him out. But I got on my Deion soapbox there. Didn't want to go get on there. But back to Brad White. I mean, think, like we said, all the guys he's losing: Deion, Max, Zion Childress, Derek Jackson, Pop Dumas Johnson, J.J. Weaver. And these are all guys that are consistent contributors and starters for him on this defense. I mean, I would look for other opportunities too. He's turned down plenty of opportunities in the past. Florida State is supposedly there's some mutual interest there with those two. Might be losing him. Stoops said press conference, Bush Hamden staying. Can you take Mark at his word right now? I don't know.
Is Mark going to be here next year?
That's my point exactly. There's more questions about this Kentucky program than there has been in a long time. That's kind of what Mark Stoops he had settled the water on stuff like that, where there wasn't this many questions going into every offseason. So we aren't going anywhere. I mean, we'll be here week in, week out, because as soon as this season ends after the Louisville game next Saturday, the offseason starts to heat up, and we got to be ready to go.
Yeah, why don't we dive into the play of the defense a little bit? Going against Texas here, we allowed 251 yards rushing. We let up 191 yards passing, but Quinn Ewers here was struggling the second half. He had a little bit of an injury, so for him to have 191 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, I thought was still pretty impressive overall on his end, not obviously for us. But what were your thoughts with the defensive play on Saturday here?
I thought the defense was very good in this game. I mean, yeah, we gave up yards on the run or in the run. I mean, that's kind of just how we've kind of studied this defense this year. We'll give up those plays, we'll let them get 5, 6 here and there, and then we're going to try and make splash plays. We're going to try and hold you to 3 once we get in the red zone. It's kind of been what this bend don't break defense is kind of what we've been this year. I think they played well. I mean, they forced 5 fumbles in this game. Granted, some of those were just Texas just not being able to catch a ball, which is something that we did later in this game as well. But, I mean, you look at guys like Dumas Johnson had 8 tackles in this game. Octavius Oxendine, man, if I could have 11 of him, I think he's one of the only guys we have on this team that his motor just never stops. And it seems like, especially on the defensive line specifically, he is the only guy that is like that. Because I know you've questioned it earlier, and I'm getting to the point now where we've got to say something. Does Deion Walker care, like in general, about anything? Like he had the whole offseason to get in shape, work on that lower body leg strength that he needed to go to the next level, to be that top 10 guy that we talked about, that everybody, draft scouts were talking about, and he didn't do it. And there's plenty of crucial moments in here in this game where he just wasn't on the field. A 3rd and goal with the ball in the 2, and you're not conditioned enough to be out there on that play against Texas. Number 3, even if you're like the most selfish player in the world, you would think, hey, listen, I'm playing on ABC at 3:30 against number 3 overall Texas. I'm going to make sure I show out in this game. And in a crucial moment like that, he's nowhere to be found. He's not on the field. And guess what? We actually get a stop there. He comes back in on 4th down and they score when he's on. So I don't know what to make of it. I had such high hopes and expectations for Deion Walker, and I can't believe how hard they came crashing down this season.
Yeah, I couldn't agree any more with you, Cam. Here, we've been holding back. You've been telling me all year to really hold back on Deion. I've had my opinions kind of all season long. I've been looking at him on TV. I'm like, man, he seems like he's taking this play off. He's taking that play off, and it was very worrisome for me. But you're like, no, like this guy's gonna get it. Like he's good. He also plays every down. I'm thinking, okay, well, you watch those players a little more intently than I do. I'll back off a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, especially against the Texas team, I'm thinking in my head, if I'm an athlete who is trying to get drafted in the NFL and I'm projected to be a 1st-round pick and we're playing the number 3 team in the nation, I want to be in on those downs. I want to be able to make that stop, because if I can make that stop, that puts film out there for the scout in the NFL who's looking for defensive linemen to come in and make a difference. I mean, I'm thinking, I don't think they're going to be a top pick, but the Rams out right now are sitting there trying to replace Aaron Donald. You could be that guy. I'm not saying he is, but he could have been that guy. He hasn't proven to me as someone who's been covering the team that he hasn't proven consistency to me. And I don't think the NFL guys are going to. I think they're going to look at that and be like, well, we could take this guy or we could take another guy who's shown a little bit more care and heart, and he's going to give. He's going to be out there 4 down or 3 downs in a row. He's going to be there for when it matters, when the Eagles come in, they try to do the tush push or whatever. So, it's been disturbing all year. We'll see what he can do against Louisville. Best of luck to him, but he's been a disappointment, I think, for the entirety of the season. And I've been holding back for a lot of this year. I think he deserves what he gets.
Before we switch off at Deion Walker, can we stop playing him at defensive end? This guy is 6'6", 6'7", 350 pounds. He is not a defensive end. I get that we are thin at defensive end and at those spots, but he is most effective as a defensive tackle, as a 1-tech or a 3-tech. That's where he made majority of all of his plays last year and as a freshman. I don't understand why Brad White continuously uses him on the edge. His get-off is slow as is, and especially, like we've talked about, his conditioning issues. Do you see him exploding out of his stance any point in the game? Because I sure don't. There's no reason to have him playing that many snaps at defensive end. And we had plenty of high recruits last year, like Brian Anderson, like Steven Souls, that have burst off the edge. We're at the point now where they can play. You don't have to worry about the red shirt. You don't have to worry about them playing too many games. Get those guys some run. Let them play off the edge. We're seeing guys make impacts as true freshman defensive ends. Look at Dylan Stewart out of South Carolina. He's been phenomenal. I know NFL teams would draft him today if they could. They got to wait 2 more years to get him. Texas had a freshman defense, and his name is escaping me right now, but he had 2+ sacks in this game. Freshman defense, this isn't 2010 where you got to sit for 2 years, bulk up, and mature. No, these guys can make instant impacts. I've got to stop seeing Deion Walker at edge. He's a defensive tackle. That's where he's going to play at the next level. Play him at defensive tackle. And I'm going to jump off my Deion Walker soapbox. I think he's heard enough in this episode.
Sure. And to be clear, I think when he gets to the NFL, he'll obviously have different coaching. They'll be, making sure he's in shape. They'll be paying him money. So, there's going to be a lot of things and programs that he's going to have that he doesn't have in college. But what he's shown in his college, what he's shown the senior year or this year for him has just not been to the standards that I was hoping for. So, we'll see what happens. But let's talk about Max. Max just came back. I know you alluded to it a little bit earlier. He had that penalty which cost us 7 points there at the end. But I thought overall he came back. He made an instant impact. He broke up that what probably would have been a touchdown against any other one of our DBs early on in the game. And I thought he really shored up some of the secondary problems that we had throughout the season while he's been out. But I wanted to get your take on what Max has meant to our defense now that he's back in the lineup.
Yeah, I think you saw that. I mean, Max was traveling the field with Isaiah Bond this entire game. Even, Matthew Golden, when Isaiah Bond was a little hurt in this game. Those are 2 receivers that are going to play on Sundays. And Max, I wouldn't say he locked them down. He did give up a couple plays. But again, that's to the style of our defense. We'll give you those 6-7 yard hitches. Do I necessarily agree with playing like that the entire game? Not necessarily. But, Max played really well in this game. Unfortunately, what most people are going to know is, slapping somebody in the back of the head, costing your team, at the very minimum, 4 points. It's unfortunate to see, especially, how big of Max Harrison fans we are on this podcast. But that pass deflection, he gets beat on the original route. You see that comeback speed, gets a pass deflection and right near the end zone. Ball was a little bit underthrown by Quinn Ewers. I think maybe a little bit of a better ball. Max may not have been able to get back into that play. But it's good to see him back. He's technically a redshirt junior. Maybe you can talk him into coming back. I don't know. He's going to be one of the most interesting cases for me just because he doesn't have that much tape this year. He had a great year last year. Fantastic, an all-SEC year last year. This year he hasn't played all that much. He put up good tape against Texas. Is that going to be enough for NFL scouts and NFL GMs to take him early in the draft where he wants to go? Does he think about transferring? I don't know. I'd love to see Max back in the blue and white. I don't know what his future holds either.
I don't think it really. Maybe it matters for him if he wants to go win a championship, but I think if he did decide to come back because he wanted to get another year and get some more film up, hopefully get a better draft spot for next year. I could see him coming back to Kentucky. He seems to do well in the system. He plays well. He travels well against the number ones. I think for the college system, he's to your point, he does a good job. He did catch up to the receiver. He's faster than anybody on the field, it feels like. So I don't think it matters for him too much to go to another team unless he's looking to win a championship, or if there's someone that just sticks out as like, hey, this guy's gonna not only help me out this season, but really take my game to the next level. I just don't know who that would be. Maybe the only person I could think of would be Primetime, go down to Colorado, which I don't think he wants to go to Colorado over UK. So could be wrong. I don't know, but
there's a bunch of SEC programs that would love to have a corner like Max Harrison and would pay a good amount to do.
Sure.
That, so.
Yeah, I guess if you take into the NIL money factor of it, maybe, sure. But I think ultimately he'll come back if he does come back, he'll come back for another season at UK and then he'll go to the pro. We'll see what happens, though. We'll talk about that as the season wraps up here. So you also know him better than I do, just with your conversation at the game. But
I also don't know him that well, so I don't want people to think I have any inside knowledge on anything. I have zero inside knowledge. Maybe negative, if that's allowed.
Sure. But why don't we move on to the next game here, unless there's anything else you want to talk about the Texas game. But
we got to talk about Cutter. We kind of danced around.
Oh, yeah, we glossed over him. That's on us. Yeah,
was
Cutter went 10 for 18, 160 yards. He threw one interception. Cam, what did you see on Saturday from Cutter?
The interception he threw was on a 3rd and 32, the very last offensive play of the game. So I just marked that out. The kid got sacked 5 times in this game and was hit hard in those sacks. I don't know what more you could have wanted to have seen from Cutter Boley to make you feel that's the promising spot about this game. Is this was a very winnable game. There was plays that we left on the field just like we have all season. Seems like me and you come in here and we can probably do the Louisville episode before they even play the game, just because it's been the same stuff we've been saying all year. Inconsistency, penalties, offensive line struggles. But back to Cutter Boley, in my opinion, he was incredible. He got to his second and third reads a lot faster than Brock Vandegrift does. And that was one of our biggest problems with Brock, was if the first read was not open for Brock, it was basically a busted play at that point. Cutter comes in, like you said, first play, just gets absolutely smashed. And you're like, oh man, maybe this is why they didn't play him at Texas, This is why they didn't want to get him hurt in this game. Comes right back, hits Barry and Brown for a big play. I mean, this kid he's got the arm talent. Grew up in Kentucky. He's got to start against Louisville. He has to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you're Stoops and you're wanting to win that Louisville game, you have to play Cutter Boley, and he has to start.
Yeah, I ultimately think that he's going to be our best shot to win that game. I think he's going to bring a new spark to it. Teams don't really have film on him. His tendencies aren't going to be there. I think he's going to give the Cats the best chance to beat Louisville here. I'm kind of going into that. I'm in the same agreement with you. I think he played overall, pretty well. He averaged 8.9 yards per throw. The QBR wasn't necessarily there, but for the most part, the expectations of him coming against the number one defense in the nation, doing as much as he did in a half, I'll take it. I don't know how much they planned throughout the week if they ran reps with him, knowing that he would go in for the second half or not. I don't know, but he came in. He did give a spark out there, and I thought he put up decent numbers, all things considered. So,
yeah, Cutter was. I don't even know if I really have words. I mean, that's what keeps me doing the podcast. In all seriousness, is seeing him play as well as he did at Texas. Like you said, the number one defense. This is a true freshman. Who the only teams to this point he's played was Murray State at home, who was one of the worst teams in FBS, and his very first throw at Florida was a pick six. I mean, that was his only 2 sets of reps against college competition. He comes out here and just makes plays from the start. He gets Willie Rodriguez involved, Jamori Macklin involved, Barry and Brown, and man, the hope and glimmer of my eyes for when you had mentioned Barry and Brown has just completely died. Talking about 2 guys that you expected a lot from in this season, Barry and Brown and Deion Walker, and both just haven't materialized. Barry and Brown had a touchdown right before the half. Trips, falls, and fumbles on his way down. I mean, it sums up, I told you earlier, it sums up the entire season. It's like we have a chance to score 7 points. It's right there. Barry and Brown's going to break an SEC record and hold it all on his own. And he trips and falls and fumbles. It's just kind of the story of the game. Unfortunately, it's might be one of Barry and Brown's last plays at Kentucky. I don't know what the future holds for him either. That's the only bad thing about, where we're sitting at right now is there's so much uncertainty in this Kentucky program that, if you're another college football team and you just saw what Cutter Boley played like at number 1 Texas for his first true test, I know you're going to make the call to him during the offseason. And you're going to see how attached he is to Kentucky. Is Cutter that attached? I don't know. He's a Kentucky kid. You might have those heartstrings tied a little bit tighter for this team. But, if he's got a chance to go somewhere else that's proven they can develop quarterbacks at a better rate than we have lately, I wouldn't fault him for that.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into the offseason here. I thought, like you said, I think he put up some good film against a good team, all things considered. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do for the Louisville game here. I believe that they should be starting Cutter Boley. I think Brock at this point, I hate to say it, but I think we should bench him. I don't think that we have a need to play him anymore. If we want to go out with a bang, obviously this game matters because it's a crosstown rivalry. But in terms of bowl game or anything like that, it doesn't matter. If you're trying to get people in, try to give them a farewell game. I hope that we're playing to win here, but I think Cutter should go in here and play really well, or attempt to play really well. We're going in right now. We're going in as the underdogs, Cam. I know you hate the matchup predictor, but we have a 30% chance, just under 30% chance of winning this game is what ESPN is saying right now. We have a 3.5 point spread against Louisville here. What is your take for the game coming up? What should we expect coming into next Saturday?
I mean, let's not gloss over the fact that this is the game of the year. It always is. Kentucky, Louisville, one of the biggest rivalries in all of sports. L's down. I mean, I can't stand Louisville. Everybody, no Kentucky fan can rightfully stand anything about Louisville. That ugly red, that stupid little bird mascot they got, nothing about them. The only somewhat thing I like about Louisville, Lamar Jackson's a pretty nice guy. Met him a couple times, pretty nice guy. I like Lamar, but now he's a Raven, and I hate Maryland. So, I mean, that kind of everything. I'm getting off on a tangent. Try not to get off on tangents in this episode. It's really not working. But Louisville's defense is terrible. It is awful. They play in the ACC where defenses are awful and atrocious. But then again, so is our offense. If we're going to win this game, it's got to be through Cutter. It's got to be through Jamari and Wilcox. And how about let's keep getting Jamari Macklin involved. He keeps making plays as of late. He's making, from week 3 to week 9, we didn't call his name once. In the past 3 weeks, he's been very solid. So I don't know if that's Bush Hamden's offensive play calls that he's doing or not. He's been well. He's been good as of late. And Dane Key's kind of slacked off as of late. Another guy who might be leaving in the offseason. I think you've got to get these receivers involved early, keep them invested in this game. Because I do think some of these receivers check out when they're not targeted early. All that being said, if you're asking me to predict, I will never, ever in my life predict Kentucky to lose to Louisville. I could care less if this team was 0-11. If this team was 0-11, I think they'd find a way to win this game. It's just kind of what Kentucky does. They beat Louisville. They might not look good doing it. It might take it might take a kickoff return touchdown. It might take a fumble return touchdown like it did last week at Texas. Kentucky will find a way to win this game. I think they're going to get a nice little shot in the arm with Cutter playing. He's going to get a full week of number 1 reps with the team. I don't think stuff like that can be understated or overstated. I think Kentucky finds a way to win this game. Screw the matchup predictor. I hate that thing. The thing's awful for everything. It's ESPN. I don't like ESPN either. But if you want to pick up the podcast, that's fine. Go Cats. I think Cats find a way. I think they score the most points of the season against non-Ohio, Southern Miss, Murray State teams. I think they find a way to win this game 34-31. They win it with an Alex Rayner field goal, and he leaves as a senior, as a hero.
Yeah, I appreciate your take there. Definitely some optimism coming from ESL. We'll take the positivity to wrap up the podcast here. I do ultimately think that we can pull out the win here. I think we'll have a lot of seniors who are playing for their final games here, and they're going to want to put a show up out there. So I have us winning. You kind of actually took my score, to be honest, but I'll change it a little bit. We'll say. Let's say 28-27. I'm going to keep it a close game. Someone misses an extra point somewhere, but Kentucky wins. I also sorry. Let me throw this in there. I do agree. I think that I think we're going to have to be able to pass the ball to win this game. I think we're going to have to sling the rock a little bit. We're going to have a balanced team. We've been proving that we can run the ball all year. I know there was a little bit of a slouch last week against Texas. Again, really good defense, but for the most part, we've had a really good team all season long with the run game. I think if we can keep that up, we can keep ball control, and then Cutter Boley can throw the ball around a little bit, get some of those guys involved, get them involved early, run the ball a little bit. I think that'll play a dividend in the outcome of this game. Keep our defense off the field as well, but ultimately, I do have us winning. We'll have the victory 28-27.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be, if they don't get up for this game, then I think that's where you finally realize that Mark Stoops has kind of lost control of this locker room. They've
Sure.
kind of hinted and speculated of that. But if you can't get them up and get them ready and in control for a game against a rival, I mean, we have nothing else to play for. This is literally it. At least Louisville can say they'll have a bowl game after this. We have nothing. This is it. This is your last week of this season. So some of these seniors are never going to touch a football field ever again. This is their last chance. There are guys that are seniors like J.J. Weaver who will probably find a way to get on an NFL roster, but he's from Louisville, chose to go to UK. You think he wants to leave a senior losing to Louisville? I don't think that's something he can stand. I think guys are going to find a way. And I do, if I had to make one prediction, it's going to be there will be a penalty thrown before this game even starts.
We'll see. Hopefully, it's in a favor for us, but hopefully, there's no objection.
Honestly, I don't care if it is or if it isn't. I want this team to have some sort of pregame scuffle. I want to show that they have heart and that this matters to them. Because honestly, and like you said, in some of these games, it seems like you and I care more than they do. So
Sure.
hopefully, we see something like that. Because those great Mark Stoops teams that you would see, like Lynn Bowden going after like the whole Virginia Tech team before the bowl game. Those were the teams where we were the best, where we had that fire, we had that moxie to sound like an older guy here. But those were when we had success, we had that edge, and we were able to take care of business. Got to find a way to do it on Saturday and have at least a little bit of positive momentum going into the offseason. Because the offseason, like we said, it's going to come fast and furious, and we got to be ready for it.
Cam, you made a good point there when you were talking. This might be the last game for some of those athletes on the field. Ever suiting up again in their lives. You've been there. I've been there. Your final game. I don't know if you remember it, but what was your thought process walking off the field for the final time? Whether you knew it was your final time or not. What reminiscing on it now? What did that feel like for you?
Well, I was leaving a smaller school in Union College. No shots there, but it was kind of like, thank God I'm out of here. Hopefully that's not what these guys are thinking. They've got a little bit more prestige going to the University of Kentucky rather than Union College.
Sure.
But I mean, if you would have told me it was my last game, I mean, there was definitely going to be a lot more intensity into it. Hopefully, guys like even Dion, guys who technically aren't seniors, but they plan on this being their last game for going pro. Dane Key's another one of those guys. Show off one last time. It's your last game in Kroger Field. Show out one last time in front of the fans and your family.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually in the same boat there. I went to a smaller college. Shout out Mount St. Joe. And look, if I knew it was my last game, if I knew what that meant back then when I was 19 years old, I definitely would have played my last game a little bit differently. I probably would have taken practice a little bit more serious throughout the season there. It's one of those reminders that only 1%. Less than 1% makes it to the pros. Less than 1% makes it to college athletics too. So, be grateful that you're there. Enjoy what you have. Go out there and kick Louisville's ass, and let's go out on a high note for the season.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Let's kick some Cardinal ass, Tom. Let's do it.
We'll wrap up on that though. Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for joining in for yet another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. Sorry for the negativity up front, but some things had to be shared here. We're going on a high note, ladies and gentlemen. Tune in next week to talk about how we kicked Louisville's ass here and what that means for the program in the future here. We'll have some things coming out in the future as well about the state of the program, transfers, recruits, all that stuff. So make sure to keep following us on social media and with the pod here. And as always, go Cats.
As always, let's kick Louisville's ass. Go Big Blue.